The project where all paths in VR converge and, according to many, where everything stopped. I had to check this for myself, and now I'll tell you how it went. Half-Life: Alyx is both a gift and a curse. On one hand, it's the most famous VR project ever made. On the other, it has created the impression among many that nothing else exists beyond it. Sometimes I refer to the VR mod for Half-Life 2, so if you haven't read that, I recommend checking it out first. The game doesn't overwhelm you with settings, it automatically adjusts everything: your height, graphics quality, and movement type. But if you dig deeper, there are actually even more options available. Compared to the Half-Life 2 mod, you can't adjust movement speed here, but you can switch all controls to a single controller and disable manual reloading. All other quality-of-life features are built into the game itself through progression or additional items. Another important point, there is a full Russian voice acting available as a mod. However, there's a catch: mods don't attach to an existing save, so you'll have to start a new game. Keep that in mind. As a last resort, you can load any chapter, but you'll receive fewer resources than if you had collected them yourself. The beginning, the first impression, was truly overwhelming. You're greeted by a view of the city, a strider walking in the distance, and a pigeon sitting nearby. Every detail is stunning. But that's just the start. Why do I laugh at this scene every time? Graphics are great, but secondary. If you want, you can install mods on Half-Life 2 that make it look better than Alyx, though the animations will give away its age, and still enjoy it if your PC can handle it. But here, after taking just a few steps and entering a room, you immediately understand what separates a game built specifically for VR from even the best mod. It's the interaction with the environment. The room is filled with objects you can pick up or knock over. You can crush aluminum cans, open cabinets and doors, and of course, draw on the window with a marker. It's playful, but it smoothly leads to the main point. All important interactions must be done by hand. You press buttons on elevators, open doors by the handle, turn valves, and pull levers. Most of this you'll do in the tutorial prologue, which ends with you receiving the gravity gloves and a pistol. None of the above is particularly revolutionary in 2025. But the level of polish, how all these mechanics work together, the subtle details, and the sheer feeling of being inside a virtual space are simply magnificent. This is exactly what you expect from virtual reality. A world of pleasant little details. You can clearly see how hard the developers worked to enhance the VR experience by the way they implemented object grabbing. The gravity gloves are a mini revolution. While pulling objects existed in VR before, it was often optional. After Alyx, almost everyone started implementing something similar because it's just that convenient. And even here, there are many small touches. To pull an object, you aim with your hand, flick your wrist, and catch it. 3 simple actions, but each requires attention and is accompanied by haptic feedback from the controllers, which greatly increases immersion. This becomes especially noticeable when compared to the Half-Life 2 mod, where objects were simply sucked straight into your inventory with zero emotion. Simple, but with taste. Reloading, aiming, and all weapon handling is done manually. The weapon designs are smart. You can easily see how many bullets are left without any special HUD. However, you can't keep partially empty magazines, so you'll have to break the habit of shooting a couple of rounds and reloading. Later, weapon upgrades become available, which simplify some things. Once installed, modifications cannot be removed. The upgrade system not only makes shooting easier with laser sights, extended magazines, etc., but also forces you to appreciate the level designers and artists' work. I already mentioned the excellent physics and how satisfying it is to interact with objects. To make sure you don't miss it, the developers hid resin, the resource needed for upgrades, everywhere. You'll find it behind books, in cabinets, on the ceiling, in bathtubs, toilets, and of course, in buckets. Dropping objects by hand feels incredibly satisfying. The advanced physics and object interaction open up possibilities similar to stuffing all your loot into a corpse and carrying it to the nearest merchant. It all comes down to your inventory. Besides weapons, you can only carry 2 additional items. You quickly realize that it's very convenient to store all medkits and grenades in a bucket and just carry the bucket around. I did exactly that for half the game. At one point, I stopped shooting entirely and just spammed enemies with grenades because I had way too many. Then I found another bucket and life got even better. Unfortunately, despite the advanced physics, there aren't many physics-based puzzles in this game. Instead, there are other puzzles where you have to manipulate things with your hands. Fixing circuit breaks, aligning points, matching beams, or guiding a ball through rings. Nothing too difficult. In these and other moments, you notice clever little details that weren't explicitly explained. If you put on a gas mask, you don't have to cover your mouth from spores. A hard hat not only obstructs your view but also protects you from barnacles. An animal mask doesn't turn you into a quadrobics enthusiast, it protects you from head crabs, though its limited field of view makes it more likely you simply won't see the head crab coming. World design, direction, and darkness. Valve stayed true to themselves. Many things characteristic of Half-Life 2 are present here too. Structurally, it's still a linear game where puzzles, platforming, secret hunting, and combat are nicely mixed together. The story follows a similar pattern. You're given a goal, you move toward it, discover that things went wrong, continue onward, learn about a larger goal, and finally reach an epic ending with an equally epic plot twist. This formula is improved by Russell, a technician scientist who sees everything through a camera and constantly talks to you. He keeps you company, comments humorously on events, and delivers a ton of lore. It's similar to when Alyx accompanied you in the episodes, but here there's much more character interaction. It's great, level variety is excellent. The game gradually introduces new mechanics and regularly presents challenges. Dark levels where only your flashlight helps, or sections filled to the brim with explosive barrels that teach you to shoot more carefully. I can't skip the distillery level. Jeff, an immortal monster that reacts only to sound, roams the area, which is packed with bottles of wine and vodka, boxes, and other fragile objects. The heroine coughs if she enters a spore cloud, so you have to cover your mouth with your hand. The entire episode is masterfully staged so that everything creaks, breaks, and groans because any noise attracts Jeff. A brilliant sequence. I'm convinced that if the developers had made the game for a portable headset instead of their stationary one, they would have added microphone support so you'd have to stay quiet too. The approach to cutscenes hasn't changed either. They don't try to impress the player, there's only one such scene, but rather showcase possibilities and introduce new enemies. When done specifically for VR, it reaches another level. It's impossible to describe, you have to experience it yourself. The world design is fantastic, filled with small details that have their own internal logic. We see how the Combine builds the Citadel and how it affects the surrounding architecture. How soldiers clear areas overtaken by Zen flora and fauna. How all the mechanisms and stations we interact with are designed with both style and function in mind. In a word, pure delight. But this level of detail sometimes works against me. The head crabs in the game are small, disgusting creatures that jump at your face like facehuggers from Alien. They were already creepy, but now they're even more detailed, behave more naturally, can crawl on walls, and one even jumped out of a toilet. In response, I ran toward the toilet. As if that wasn't enough, there are completely dark locations full of these things and you only have a flashlight on your hand. It was genuinely terrifying. Along the way, you meet almost all the familiar enemies plus a bunch of new ones, solve simple puzzles, and in the finale, due to a lucky accident, you upgrade your gloves and disintegrate enemies at the atomic level, only to witness another major plot twist that changes the ending in 2 seconds. Classic Half-Life? After the credits, there's an epic post-credits scene, and then you look at your playtime and realize it's almost exactly the same as Half-Life 2, about 14 hours. Yet it somehow feels shorter. The gnome, developer commentary, and flaws. After finishing the game, I immediately started a new playthrough. I wanted to complete the achievements, including carrying the gnome from the very beginning to the end, plus a few others. To combine business with pleasure, I turned on the developer commentary. You can learn Gabe Newell's email and hear comments on various aspects of the game and the challenges of its creation. Listening to them, you understand what goals the developers set for themselves and how much effort, meticulousness, and testing went into making sure players felt exactly what was intended. They talk about how long certain scenes took to create, how playtesters reacted, and what new technologies they had to invent because old flat game approaches no longer worked. I agreed with most of their observations. Among my friends, there were exactly the types of players they mentioned. One carefully watches every new scene before exploring, my wife immediately starts touching everything, and another friend ignored almost all interactions and just rushed through the story. What was an easy walk for me was a desperate struggle for survival for someone else. In my opinion, the developers overdid it a bit in this regard. This brings me to the biggest flaw of Half-Life, Alyx, the enemy AI. Enemies, the developers said they preferred the more tactical AI from the first game, so they tried to implement something similar. This is especially noticeable when compared to the Half-Life 2 mod, where enemies aggressively rushed you, even running straight into bullets. In VR, you're much more focused on individual units, and since manual reloading is in the game, the overall pace is slower. That makes sense, but they probably went a bit too far. The enemies are beautifully animated and react well to what's happening, but they often feel too passive, as if something is broken. For example, I threw a grenade, 2 soldiers looked at it and very lazily started moving away. They didn't make it. In another situation, they instantly reacted and ran away. When you shoot at them, sometimes they just stand there eating bullets, other times they immediately take cover. They have tools to flush you out. One throws grenades, another calls saw drones, a fourth simply walks toward you with a shotgun. They have the means to make you move, but they're so sluggish that you usually kill them long before they use those tools. A perfect example of their passiveness is the achievement that requires catching an enemy grenade before it reaches you. I found the right soldier and waited a long time for him to actually throw it. Then you listen to the developer commentary and hear, players didn't like it when they were being shot at. Well, that explains it. So the enemies are excellently made and beautifully animated, but they use their abilities too slowly so the player in the headset has time to react. Throughout the entire game, there are only 2 moments when 6 enemies appear on screen at once. Usually it's 3 or 4. As a result, almost any fight lasts no longer than 30 seconds, even on the highest difficulty. It would have been better if higher difficulty increased enemy aggression instead of just giving them more health. Antlions add some variety to combat. You have to shoot their weak points, which can be tricky when there are many of them. The problem is they're very slow. I never got hit by one because I could just run away. To be fair, the final episode with them is quite good. They come from everywhere, there are lots of them, and enemies are shooting from towers, restricting your movement. Other issues. Another strange decision is the holographic sight. It's the cheapest and first upgrade for the pistol, and most players will probably choose it. Everyone who plays shooters knows how useful a bright dot sight is, especially in VR. But here it feels like a joke. It's the most inconvenient holographic sight I've seen in any VR game. The sight looks like a holographic lens and highlights critical spots on enemies, but the dot is the exact same color as everything else and extremely small. You have to turn the gun around just to find it. This significantly slows down aiming and makes it uncomfortable. I ended up reloading a save and removing the upgrade. It's strange that such a thoroughly tested game allowed this. The flashlight is presented as if it should turn on automatically depending on lighting. It sounds convenient and modern. In reality, it only turns on in specific scripted episodes where there is no light at all. There are many moments where I wanted to light up an area, but I couldn't. All new puzzles are built around hand interaction, which makes sense, but physics-based puzzles have almost disappeared. There's no more stacking objects to reach something. The game has all the tools for it, but doesn't use them. The ability to squeeze objects is used only for one achievement and to showcase the technology. In Blade and Sorcery, it lets you slide down ropes and catch weapons. Here, nothing. Mods, of course, there's a workshop, so installing mods is just one click. You can change models, improve AI, add lightsabers and the Force, and tons of new weapons. There are also full campaigns and entirely new games. Here are the most popular ones: Gunman contracts, 2 add-ons, 2 maps, 2 contracts. Each lasts 15-20 minutes. You play as a hitman completing contracts. You have a pistol with infinite ammo, you still need to reload. The entire map is pure John Wick action, moving through rooms and corridors, destroying waves of enemies. No puzzles, no exploration, just shooting and occasional medkits. Pretty fun as a standalone experience. The creator eventually outgrew the mod and announced a full standalone VR game. We're waiting to see what comes of it. Final thoughts in this blog: I don't think I've praised any game this much. There's a good reason for it. Half-Life: Alyx is an outstanding VR attraction where everything is done at the highest level. However, combat here is just a way to diversify the experience, not the foundation. That's important to understand. The developers really tried to make the feeling of being in virtual reality as vivid as possible, and that's something very difficult to describe in words. There are games where individual elements are done better, but taken as a whole, this is an excellently crafted project that delivers a genuinely new experience. I really hope Valve doesn't stop making VR games here. Don't pee your pants? Conclusion: after playing through 3 Half-Life games, here are my conclusions. If you want a well-thought-out and technically polished VR attraction, right arrow Half-Life. Alyx, if you want more active combat and variety, right arrow Half-Life 2. If you're still not satisfied or just miss the universe, right arrow welcome to Black Mesa, but be prepared for possible technical issues. I personally got enormous pleasure from all 3 projects. It's clear that both Valve and the fans approached them with love. These are experiences you should definitely try.